Okay, so welcome back to Step by Step Listening, where I'm going to be sharing over the next few days top tips and resources to help you to stay absolutely focused, but also to check in that if you decide absolutely 100% this is what you've got to do, it's the right thing for you, it feels right, you know, you've checked in with your gut, your head says it's okay, your heart says it's okay, and then somebody else gives you some feedback, you go, oh, maybe it's not right. And then before you know it, inaction is taking place and procrastination. So if you want to be really focused for the next 30 days, you want to be able to follow through one course of action until you succeed, and you want to be respectful and mindful of feedback and opinion from others, then the listening jar could be just the tool for you. So I want to talk to you about how to create a listening jar today. So it's just a practical visual tool that you can use to start tracking how you're talking to yourself, what are you paying attention to, what are you noticing, and I'll tell you a bit more over the next few days, some different ways that you can use the jar, and you'll find the way that works for you, because ultimately you're going to give yourself feedback and you're going to start trusting what intuitively is the right way for you to do these things. So first of all, we need a jar. So I have this one. This is from IKEA. It's 85p, so it's not very expensive. It's something you can do quickly. You might want to use a pickled onion jar. You might want to get a jar from the range or something. I like this one, and I didn't really think about it at the time, I'll be honest with you, and I'll say to you, don't think about it too much, trust yourself. Just buy a jar and it will give you feedback whichever way. I had bought these back in November last year. I bought a number of them actually at the time. And it's only now I'm kind of going, why did I like this jar? Because I did look at several of them and I didn't like all of them, but I like this one because it can go at different angles. Oops. But I think also it's a sweetie jar. And one of the things I was really looking at to do is to get healthy, and it was to cut sugar out of my diet, so reduce the amount of sugar, artificial sugar I was taking on board. And so I suppose having a sweetie jar that has, instead of giving myself rewards with food, I was going to reward myself by acknowledging through the post-it notes I was going to put in here things that were going well for me. So it's almost a transferring. So I didn't really know that at the time, I'll be honest with you. It's only now, and I've reflected on it, I thought, oh, you know, what is it about this jar I like? So the first thing you need to do is get a jar. If you want this PDF document, then just inbox me in the email below, and I will happily send you a copy of this. But this is just my version of how I'm using the listening jar, but you are going to start to trust yourself and work out what works for you. Once you've got your jar, the next thing you're going to need is some post-it notes. Okay, I tend to use 3. I leave the blue ones on the side, and I'll tell you a little bit about why and how they work for me. But I've got 3 of them. So I have one colour that represents what's working for me. Yellow is about things that have improved, and pink is what's not working. Things that I'm getting stressed about, or I'm noticing I'm getting frustrated with, or people I'm getting frustrated with. And the green is about what I want, and I also use the pink for things I don't want. So that's how I use them. And then whenever I feel like it, I fill out a post-it note and stick it in the jar. Okay, so that's how you're going to use those ones. The blue ones I left on the side because I only wanted 3, and what actually happened in our house is my children asked me what they were for, and I said, well, the green one is for things at work, and then my daughter her favourite colour is blue, and she said, oh, but I want the blue to be for what's working. I said, well, they can be what's working for you. My daughter doesn't live with us, she's 19 and got her own place, so when she popped round the other day, I noticed there was a couple of post-it notes in there, so she'd enjoyed our curry and chips, and she'd enjoyed our day out, and she popped a post-it note in there. So when I was actually unloading them the last time I reviewed the jar, it was really nice to have her saying things that she liked. So by using that separate colour and saying to other people, if you notice something that's working for you and you want to put it in, you feel free to use that post-it note and add in things you think I'm doing well, or things I've done that are good for you. So that's it. And then the last thing you need, I've got some candles. These are just ordinary tea lights. Again, you can buy them quite large amounts quite cheaply, but the idea is there's about 3.5 hour burn time, and the reason I have the candles is 1, they smell nice, 2, I light them whenever I empty the jar and I place all the post-it notes out on the table, and I light it so that I just take a quiet moment to reflect, but also it's to time how long over a 6 month period I'm giving myself to really acknowledge my patterns. So I'm thinking like an hour a month roughly that we perhaps would want to be taking out. You might decide you want to do it, you might be filling the jar up within 3 days, and you might be curious about patterns sooner. So the time thing is very personal to you. What seems to be working for me at the moment is that every 2 or 3 weeks I'm taking out, lighting the candle, spending a little time looking at the post-it notes and just noticing how many of the things are still working, adding any new ones that are working, adding things that are not working, that sort of thing. So all you need to do now is get yourself a jar, and then I'm going to ask you to place that where it needs to be in order for it to be an effective visual reminder of you to check in on the kind of feedback you're giving yourself. Where does it need to be? Maybe it'd be on your bedside cabinet for you to fill it out before you go to bed every night. Maybe it needs to be in the kitchen. Maybe it needs to be in your office, but you choose. And I'm going to ask you some questions that are not loaded with any assumption or judgment, and they're just going to be very open for you to decide what works for you. And this process very much is about you listening to yourself and trusting, intuitively listening and going, you know, what works. You might decide you need to have 5 jars, 1 in every room. You might decide it needs to be a wallet that you carry around with you in your handbag. I don't know, but the point being is you have a visual reminder, you're going to see it. And you'll be able to see the different quantity of post-it notes that are in your jar at any one time. So the questions are, find a space where that jar needs to be in order for you to see it regularly, acknowledge it, and pay attention to the balance of feedback that you're giving yourself. And then just check if it's in the right space. Is it at the right height? Is it facing in the right direction? And is it at the right angle? And is that jar at the right distance between you and it? So have fun creating your jar. If this is the first video you've seen, we have got an introductory video that tells you a little bit more about why we would invest time in a listening jar. Please do check out video number 1. Alternatively, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, and there will be a series of videos coming out over the next few days that will help you to be really focused and to give yourself more effective feedback. And ultimately, what I want is to help you to achieve success without stress. See you in the next video.